Welcome to the December 5th meeting of the BC LaRouche chapter here in New Westminster. And this was a rainy night, so you all came, and that's great. Now, a lot has happened in the last 10 days. And tonight, I have to report to you that we have an escalation at this moment towards a nuclear war. We have, at the same time, an unprecedented drive to develop the world. I myself have become personally very anxious about the situation. I'm on edge, personally. And yet I can't help feeling that we could avoid a nuclear war. However, avoiding a nuclear war requires that the safety pin on the trigger to nuclear war be locked, as opposed to now cocked the way it is with Obama in the White House. So there are 8 major events have occurred in the last 8 days. And these events occurred since the downing last week of the Russian Su-24 bomber by a F-16.
Sorry. No idea what that is. Go ahead. Sorry. Jesus. Okay, go ahead.
An F-16 Turkish fighter, air-to-air fighter jet. Now, this downing is unprecedented in the history of the Cold War and the post-Cold War history. Not at any time have you had a deliberate attack on a Soviet or Russian airplane in this way, out in the open. And this could not have happened. This is a NATO nation, Turkey. This could not have happened without Obama's personal, it could not have happened. In fact, I would venture even further than that. I would say Obama organized the attack on the Russian plane.
Just a quick question. Did that plane actually cross over, or was it was shot?
There's no evidence that it crossed over. All the evidence points to a premeditated.
It was shot down in Syria.
Yes.
Not into the.
Yes.
Okay.
All the evidence points to a premeditated, pre-planned, pre-prepared attack. All the evidence. And even U.S. military sources are saying that. It's not like they're saying it's not. Okay? Now, when this happened, elements of the State Department and elements of the U.S. military command went on a full effort to maintain communication with the Russians during this period to try to stop an escalation. So so the U.S. military for a large, I believe, was to some degree was caught off guard. The actual U.S. military was caught off guard. They weren't expecting this.
Just a few people knew.
Just a few people knew, right? Probably. So this is what happened. Now, you have to get a sense of this. This is unprecedented. There was and then the next day, Obama had a press conference with French President Hollande. Now, Hollande had come to the United States to try to get the United States to work with Russia in an all-out anti-terror effort. And instead, Obama came out with 3 formulations. This is the next day. 1, no cooperation with Russia until Assad is removed. 2, that Turkey was in the right to shoot down the Russian plane. 3, the U.S. is leading the coalition to stop ISIS, not Russia. That Russia had only one ally, Iran, period. We have the rest. All right? And he said it in a very derisive way towards the Russians. In other words, the U.S. is now taking over the war against ISIS. And he said this at this press conference. And who are the principal allies in the region that are going to be working with the United States to defeat ISIS? Turkey, the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia. Right? The very sponsors of the Salafist ideology. All right, so now, a day or two later, a crucial article appeared in Politico, online publication, which is read by all the political people. The article was entitled, Could U.S.-Russia tensions go nuclear? And this is the person writing it was Bruce Blair, who was an officer in the early warning system, nuclear component of the U.S. military. Now, what he says here, and I'm not going to read you the whole article. He says that low-level military encounters between Moscow and Russia are fanning escalatory sparks not witnessed since the Cold War. There exists a growing risk that could morph by design or inadvertence into a nuclear threat. The backdrop of these concerns is that both the United States and Russia maintain their nuclear command posts in many hundreds of strategic warheads on hair-trigger alert. This is a long-standing practice or habit driven by the inertia of the Cold War. And believe it or not, Russia has shortened the launch time from what it was during the Cold War. Today, top military command posts in Moscow area can bypass the entire human chain of command and directly fire by remote control rockets in silos and on trucks as far away as Siberia in only 20 seconds.
Okay.
The Russians.
Which individuals can do that? The president from Moscow?
The top military command posts in Moscow, protected or whatever. Now, history shows that crisis interactions, once triggered, take on a life of their own. Safeguards are loosened, and unfamiliar operational environment cause accidents and unauthorized actions. Miscalculations, misinterpretations, and the loss of control create a fog of crisis out of which a fog of war may emerge. Somehow along the slope, a psychological construct known as deterrence is supposed to kick in to prevent the use of nuclear weapons. But deterrence can become an extreme sport during a confrontation, a game of taking and manipulating existential risk, morphing into games of chicken, bluff, coercion, and blackmail. The basic idea is to instill fear in the adversary's mind that events could spin out of control and result in a nuclear war. The public just doesn't realize how little time exists for our leaders to make a decision to use nuclear weapons, even today. And if anything, the atmosphere has become even more hair-triggered with the threat of cyber warfare. A launch order is the length of a tweet. Missile crews, in turn, transmit a short stream of computer signals that immediately ignite the rocket engines of many hundreds of land-based missiles. For the United States, it takes 1 minute. As a former nuclear missile launch officer, I practiced it hundreds of times. We were called Minutemen. The U.S. submarine crews take a little longer, 12 minutes. Okay. The last time the U.S. brandished nukes wholesale for the purpose of deterrence was in 1973, when Henry Kissinger's team raised the global nuclear alert level during the Arab-Israeli War. Russia's sounding of nuclear warnings over the Ukraine imbroglio is reminiscent of this Cold War brinksmanship. Close encounters between Russian and Western military have spiked. NATO fighter planes have made many hundreds of intercepts of Russian warplanes over the past year. Russian warplanes have stepped up provocative overflights of foreign airspace and also engaged in muscular interdiction. At some point, these interactions could begin to spin out of control into what strategist Tom Schelling calls the threat that leaves something to chance. The cycles of action-reaction evident in the Ukraine crisis are leaving more and more to chance, although the parties seem confident that they're in full control. We're also deploying Aegis destroyers to the Black Sea to reassure allies like Romania. As it turns out, these ships carry dozens of cruise missiles armed with conventional warheads, whose 1,000-mile range allows them to reach all the way to Moscow. By my calculations, these are stealthy weapons because they fly low, and accurate weapons could strike without warning and destroy all but the hardest military targets. They could destroy the Kremlin in a flash without warning, along with key Russian installations in its nuclear command, control, and communications and early warning network. Moreover, the Russians cannot be 100% certain that the missiles are not nuclear tipped. This may pose a decapitation threat, probably underlies Russia's escalatory response, harassment of the destroyers with fighter aircraft, and its recent threat of attack submarines to the Black Sea. And in further escalating response, Naval's top commander has proposed deploying U.S. anti-submarine aircraft to new bases in the region to counter the Russian subs, which now threaten our destroyers, which now threaten Moscow. Do U.S. leaders understand that the Russians may fear a decapitation threat is emerging, and that this threat may be underlying driver for raising the stakes for Russia to a level of an existential threat warranting preparations for the use of nuclear weapons? I doubt they do. At some point, one side or another may blink and back off or may not. Tensions could continue to rise until the crisis escalates by tension or inadvertence to the threshold of nuclear use. In the case of Russia, this threshold is low. Russia's strategy in Europe was devised by President Vladimir Putin himself in the year 2000 in response to NATO's bombing of the Balkans. The strategy is called de-escalatory escalation, which unleashes tens to hundreds of nuclear weapons in a first strike meant to shock an adversary into paralysis. And so it might, or it might just escalate into a nuclear exchange. Given the 11 to 30-minute flight times of attacking missiles, 11 for submarines and 30 for rockets from land, nuclear decision-making under launch on warning, the process from warning to decision to action is extremely rushed, emotionally charged, and pro forma, driven by checklists. I describe it as the rote enactment of a prepared script. In some scenarios, after only a 3-minute assessment of early warning data, the U.S. president receives a 30-second briefing on his nuclear response options and their consequences. He then has a few minutes, 12 at most, more likely 3 to 6, to choose. Then a short launch order would be transmitted to launch crews. Our past and continuing reliance on launch on warning means that the standard paradigm is stable mutual deterrence based on second strike retaliation after absorbing a massive attack, and is an intellectual construct without operational meaning. In other words, there is no such thing as deterrence. Our policy was premised on being able to accept the first wave of attacks, yet at the operational level, it was never accepted. U.S. presidents went along with this, albeit reluctantly. They all acquiesced to the imperative of making a quick decision to fire on warning. Ronald Reagan, in his memoirs, complained about having only 6 minutes to decide how to respond to a blip on a radar scope and decide whether to release Armageddon. The U.S. and Russia have come this close to disaster on several occasions involving false alarms. On one occasion, National Security Advisor Zabriskie was seconds away from waking President Jimmy Carter up in the middle of the night to inform him that the Soviets had launched an all-out nuclear attack and that Carter would have to choose a retaliatory option without delay. As he began to pick up the phone, he received word that it was a false alarm. If Russia-U.S. relations deteriorate again to a Cold War level of nuclear brinksmanship, the risk of mistaken launch may be even higher than it was during the Cold War. During a crisis, the severity which may not even be appreciated by one of both belligerents, to wit, in 1983-84, paranoid Soviet leaders, fearing a U.S. nuclear first strike, were on the brink of launching a preemptive nuclear attack against the United States, and U.S. leaders had not a clue. A predisposition of leaders to believe missile attack warnings would, of course, be heightened. And due to total collapse of Russia's satellite early warning network, today's Russia's decision time launch on warning has decreased to 2 to 4 minutes. The situation is a mistaken launch waiting to happen. It is aggravated by the murky threat, cyber warfare. Given our poor comprehension of the cyber threat, it seems imprudent in the extreme to keep U.S. and Russian command system poised to launch on warning and nuclear missiles poised to fly as soon as they receive short stream of computer signals whose origins may not be authorized.
Can you read that a little bit more slowly?
Sure. So, and so on it goes. So, now, how do you deal with this is you have to have open communications. You have to have the hotline. You have to have a certain degree of transparency where the other side can trust what the other side is doing. All of this has been eliminated by Obama, who does not have a hotline. And only recently did he allow the U.S. military to have discussions with the Russian military. So this is where we are now. So that occurred right after. And this article is very significant. It's a signal to the political class that this is serious. This thing that happened over Syria a few days before is serious. Now, the third thing that happened, which is December 1st, is that the president is submitting to Congress a bill to give war powers authorization to go to war with ISIS, which supposedly we're already still at war with, but it's been unconstitutional. And so Ashton Carter and Chief of Staff went before the Armed Services Committee and were questioned. And the final questioner was a young congresswoman from Hawaii, Tulsi Gabbard, a Democrat. And she questioned Defense Secretary Ashton Carter and confronted him on this. And he was stunned. And she said to him, how many nuclear weapons do we have? How many nuclear weapons do the Russians have? How many people are going to die in a nuclear war, in a nuclear exchange? And then she said, why are we sending F-15s? ISIS has no air force. Are we sending F-15s to engage the Russians? Are we sending F-15s to be shot down by the Russians? You know. And then she said, our position is Assad must go. The Russian position is Assad must stay. And it's just going to escalate, to nuclear war. This is a threat of nuclear war. She put it on the table. And Ashton Carter, it was very evasive and so forth. But the fact that this was done in Congress, this was done by a congresswoman, this was done by a fearless congresswoman who's only 34 years old, and who happens to be a veteran of the war in Iraq, who happens also to have been in intelligence as well in Iraq, and she's a very respected veteran, of a military veteran on top of everything else. So this had a big impact, even though it was not discussed. But she's one of the people that is responding to what we've been doing. She and Walter Jones and a few others. I'm waiting for them to put in a bill of impeachment in. Now, so this is very significant. Now, on the same day that this exchange Armed Services Committee, the fourth thing that happened was that Obama gave a final press conference before his departure from Paris, and I watched it. And Obama is very disturbed in this press conference. It's not clear what's disturbing him, but he's not able to really focus very well. And his answers were very rambling. And there was a quality of suppressed anger, but also a quality of like he's trying to pump himself up to tell a bunch of lies to make pretense that things are okay. And this is the impression I had. And it was very freaky. Well, then the next day, right, along with this, there appeared a series of articles coming on the heels of other articles. There was a November 24th article by Dana Milbank describing Obama as President Obama, about how when Hollande met after the Paris bombing, Milbank wrote, Hollande argued to crush ISIS and to work with the Russians and the Syrian government to do so, while Obama was hemming and hawing about how beating ISIS would be long and hard and that Assad had to go first. Then you had the disappointed liberal wrote a column in the Post on the 1st worrying that Obama has lost his voice, that his eloquence, this is Richard Cohen, that his eloquence, quote, his eloquence has been replaced by petulance and he has lost the power to persuade, and that his problem is that he often has nothing to say. And then another article by Mark Whittington from Houston in the examiner.com, has Barack Obama just lost his voice or has he lost his mind, in referencing this other article. And then finally, the Washington Times by Charles Hurt, both pointed, the Whittington's article quoted from a familiar place in the Washington Times by Charles Hurt, who pointed to Obama's halting and disconnected speech patterns during the Paris Climate Summit, indicated he had lost not just his voice, but his mind. And he said, has the president lost his ability to discharge the powers and duties of office? He noted that in Obama's press conference in Paris was without a teleprompter. It was impossible to count the number of times he seized up, added to deaden the silence with only a drawn out ooh and ahs. So in Hurt concludes, someone alert the Senate pro tempore, somebody call the Speaker of the House, and let's all dust off the 25th Amendment. Failing impeachment, maybe Vice President can convene the cabinet, invoke the 25th Amendment, and declare President Obama mentally incompetent to serve out the remainder of his term. So this was put out. This was put out there. So that's basically the fourth thing that happened. Hey, Charles.
His term ends when? Next year?
February.
February?
No, January 21st, January 20th, 2017. 13 months, 14 months. Okay. Now, the fifth thing that happened was the following day, which was Thursday. No, it was Wednesday. No, excuse me, the following day, which was
Thursday,
which was Wednesday, December 2nd. Okay. The Russians had their defense ministry, the assistant defense minister, and a number of generals present all the evidence of Turkey's involvement in the logistical support of ISIS through the purchasing of and distribution of oil delivered by ISIS to the Turkish, and the son of Erdogan and the son-in-law of Erdogan are very much involved in this. And they showed aerial photographs. They showed the whole thing. So they exposed the whole fraud of the so-called war against ISIS being conducted by our allies, Turkey, who is doing everything possible to support ISIS and is actually providing the funds and the channels for weapons and this is all being paid for with, among other things, by the oil that's being produced out of the areas that ISIS controls. So this, and Erdogan said he would resign if you could prove it, but he's not going to resign. So that happened. It happened, right? The Russians just went like this. You know, here it is. Okay, so now everybody knows, or they already knew beforehand, but now it's public. The Russians are saying it. They're showing you the proof. And Iran is going to be showing the proof, and others are now showing the proof. So this is serious. This is an escalation. Now, the sixth thing that happened the following day, on Thursday, is that Vladimir Putin gave his State of Russia speech before 1,000 people in the Kremlin Hall, in the hall of the Kremlin. And I think these were all parliamentarians and significant people in Russian society were present. It wasn't, just anybody that was there. And he made a number of very crucial formulations. He compared all of this, ISIS, he lumped it all together as a barbaric attack on civilization. And he prefaced by saying, the last time we had something barbaric like this, we didn't stop it in time. They set off Hitler, and tens of millions of people died. He's making that comparison, the barbaric quality, anti-civilization. The issue is defending civilization. That's the issue. It's not about geopolitics. It's not about who's on first and who's on second. It's about defending humanity, defending civilization. And then he said that Russia will go after, expose, and target everyone who provides support, financial support, logistical support, et cetera, to these people. And and that anyone using them for short-term goals has to stop. So he's laying it down. This is the way. And he's putting forward the UN Charter as the basis for all of this, and the respect of nations, and the concept of civilization. These people. This is not civilization. This is something barbaric coming out of hell. Okay, now, and then the eighth thing that has happened just recently, a day or so ago. A Turkish military incursion occurred in northern Iraq, coming down to the suburb of Kirkuk, and which is currently under the control of ISIS. Which is really being run by
Mosul.
Mosul, which is currently under the control of ISIS, which militarily is mainly remnants of the officer corps of Saddam's army, and this is Obama. This is coming from Obama. This is Obama's next move. Turkey is now coming in saying, "Oh, we're coming in to train the people fighting ISIS." Right? No one believes that. They're coming in. They're violating the sovereign territory of Iraq. And then the prime minister of Iraq accused the Turks of violating their sovereign territory and said they must leave immediately. Now, I don't know if they've left or not.
In regards to, I think I picked it up on the news. What's the position of Iraq and Jordan now? Because they
Let me just
okay.
say this. Okay, where is this coming from? Putin. In other words, the prime minister of Iraq is orientating towards Putin. The Turks are orientating towards Obama. So this is what's happening, right?
I thought I read in the paper to further that Iraq claimed that if the U.S. tried to enter, they'd see it as a violation.
Yes, that's the whole point.
But the U.S. is still in Iraq, so.
Yeah, but they're supposed to have left. But anyhow, the point is that Iraq is now functioning more as a nation than it has for a long time.
Pro-Russian now?
It's not pro-Russian. It's
Leading.
it's seeing their future with Russia because you know, this thing would never anyhow.
In another word, is that the United States cannot militarily go back to Iraq. I mean, they're still there, but not operational they were before.
Right.
So they cannot be active as before.
Right. What I'm trying to say here is that you have the hardening of positions here. You have Iraq going with Putin and Iran.
Yeah.
And the Syria and Hezbollah. And you have Jordan trying to get out from under the United States. They don't want to remain in the United States control. They want to get out of it. And they want to work with Russia, actually. And then you have this Turkish situation. Now, I don't want to focus on the particular games that everybody's playing. I want to focus on the fact that you now have essentially you have two commands emerging in the so-called war against ISIS. One is led by the United States. The other is led by Russia. The United States is saying this is their war against ISIS, but it's not. It's a lie. It's a war against Russia. Okay? So we have a problem here. This is what I'm trying to communicate. It's going to get very complicated. And then on top of that, you could say a ninth thing happened, which was that the British Parliament has now passed by vote, giving Britain the go-ahead to start bombing in Syria, to start bombing ISIS. How did the British come into this? So everybody's getting into it. And the U.S. is now leading the fight against ISIS, and Russia is actually carrying out a fight against ISIS and against everybody else.
Where's the U.S. and I think France has entered it? Where are they flying?
Well, the French are in the middle because they wanted to work with the Russians, but now they have all this pressure coming down on them. And now the Germans have announced they're going to join as well. So what's going to happen? You have two different commands. With Obama saying, we are leading the war against ISIS and Assad must go. That's what he's saying. And Russia's saying Assad must stay because we can't defeat ISIS if Assad is thrown out, and we need to maintain this integrity of the state of Syria. Where is this going? What's the next step tomorrow? What's the next step beyond that? That's what I'm trying to get at. This is very, very, very dangerous situation.
But at the same time, you're saying that elements are starting to move towards impeaching Obama.
Well, there's people saying what I'm saying is there's people now starting to talk about it because it's getting very serious. You have the nuclear war issue and you have the impeachment issue. In other words, they're connected. Or not impeachment, the 25th Amendment issue. It's becoming very serious, okay? And so what you have is a situation where do you apply the 25th Amendment Or do you okay, do you allow Obama to take it to its conclusion? And that's where I'm going to talk about now, which is the psychology of the situation. And okay, and this is about this part of the presentation is entitled Bertrand Russell, the skyscraper of lies, versus William Shakespeare. And you have to understand the British methods and the acceleration of those methods since the advent of Bertrand Russell and what happened in the early 1900s. Okay, you have to understand this. The development of empiricism, mathematics, sense certainty develops the idea that there's no such thing as truth in an efficient sense. For instance, Bertrand Russell's famous for his conundrum. If a tree falls in the forest and no one is there, the tree didn't fall. In other words, if you did not know that something happened, it didn't happen.
That was Russell?
That was Russell.
Russell?
Russell. Bertrand Russell. Now, you have to understand, we have the power to create through controlling perception. This is in Hume. This is in Russell. This is in British empiricism. We have the power to control perception. We have the power thereby to control people's perception of reality. Therefore, we have the power to control reality. It's very important to understand this. We control the information. We control the perception. Russia invaded Crimea. The economy is doing great. CO2 is the biggest threat to mankind. The banks are all sound. We agree. We agree, right?
Consensus.
And so the idea is that if you have the power to control how people perceive, then you have the power to impose that on them. And any objection to that gets crushed. But more importantly, it's the idea that truth is not efficient, but rather power, force, fear. That's efficient, not truth. So what if you're true? So who gives a damn? How many guns you got? How many nukes do you have? How much money do you have? Okay, doesn't matter. So what if I'm lying? It's still the truth. Well, maybe it's not the truth, but it's what's real. Okay, it's what's real. It's what you got to deal with.
I just want to point out that this is now where the climate change discussion is also going.
Right, exactly. Now, so you have to understand this from this standpoint, that that's the world that we have been conditioned to live in. Now, that's not the world. That's not the whole world, because China is not functioning on that basis. India is not functioning on that basis. Russia is not functioning on that basis. Other parts of the world aren't functioning on that basis. Okay? But nonetheless, this is the Western system, the so-called Western system. And this is the British. This is what happened when Bertrand Russell took over the education, his approach and approach of others who were in collaboration or like him, took over the educational situation, took over the media, took over the scientific establishments, and so forth and so on. Now, what happens at the point that all these imposed perceptions and agreements get punctured? Whether it's the banks crashing, or Putin, or LaRouche, or China. What happens when these things get punctured? Because this so-called reality has brought humanity to a point of collapse. What happens? What happens to a person like Obama? Right? What happens to the average person who believes all this stuff? What happens to the people who actually believe all this stuff? What happens to them? What happens to them? When this thing gets punctured, when it all becomes a fraud? Do they keep lying? I know it's a fraud, there's nothing else. What happens to people? Do they go absolutely insane and become religious fundamentalists and give up all reason and just, you know, God said, I have to do this and I have to go kill you and that's that? You know, what are people going to do in this situation? Are they just going to drown themselves in drugs and alcohol? You know, so anyhow, based upon what I saw at on this Paris press conference on December 1st of Obama, I saw inklings of this kind of erosion of belief in the lies. Not that he doesn't know they're lies, it's the belief and the confidence that the power can control and impose those lies. It's a starting of a collapse in the belief in the power that can run the world in this way. And I believe that this makes it very dangerous, because Obama is not only a narcissist, a big megalomaniac narcissist, but it's a very dangerous situation. Now, Shakespeare, on the other hand, understood this. If you read his tragedies, like Macbeth, or Hamlet, or Julius Caesar, the future is foretold in the first scene by the insanity of the characters. You know the outcome based, and you get the outcome. But what he's showing you is the insanity, the inability to have an understanding of reality, of understanding of truth. You have in the case of Hamlet, or in the case of Macbeth. And you see foretold the future in the moment, expressed in that moment in the first scenes, where in the dialogue you get a picture of the mess, and then you know where it's going. But this is Shakespeare. He's saying there is the ultimate consequence, and then that's what the tragedies demonstrate: the ultimate consequence of these things. And that's what's happened to the culture in the West since the advent of Bertrand Russell and all the other things, the modernists and all the stuff that's happened. You've had this problem of a disconnect in the belief that there is an accountable future, an accountable truth, an accountable reality, natural law, and not the religious one, but the idea that there's an actual, that the universe is governed by principles. There are consequences to man not pursuing man's innate potential for creativity. There are consequences in not developing new technologies and developing science. There's consequences in not fostering and developing the creative powers of your youth. Quite the opposite. If you do the opposite, there are consequences. And not that the monarchy wants those negative consequences, but the population can't understand the negative consequences. They might be able to understand the negative consequences, but then they're told no. So the question then becomes, Hold on a second. Here it is. So the question then becomes, so this brings us to, who is Obama? Who is he? He's the perfect liar. Everything's a lie. He's the perfect liar, and he's a megalomaniac. And the eye. And what happens to Obama when the eye is crushed? Will he be relieved of his duties under the 25th Amendment? Or will he be allowed to go to nuclear war? That is the fundamental question facing us now. What happens when Obama's megalomaniac ego is crushed, collapses under the facts, the reality of whether it's the financial crisis or whether it's Russia organizing against what he's doing or showing up what the fraud of everything? What happens? But there's a deeper issue in America, which is seen in the mass shootings, where people lose it. I think there's a link between the psychotic state of Obama and the people who are going out and just losing it and start shooting. There's a deeper sense of existential crisis that comes about when your world no longer exists, where everything you believe in is gone. Everything's a fraud. Everything's a lie. There's nothing worth living for. You've been used and abused, and you decide to go for it, and you kill as many people as you can. I think there's a connection in the cultural angst, or the cultural zeitgeist that has that quality in America. It's very, very dangerous, very, very dangerous. And Obama said in this press conference, they don't do mass shootings in other countries. I wonder why that's the case. You know, and then he says, well, we just need to be more, we need to find out who all the deranged people are and keep a watch on them. You know, like that's gonna stop it. But why are these people deranged? What's happening? What's causing them to become totally deranged? It's because they have been given a false reality, which is disintegrating. And they have nothing else. And so the question then becomes, what can we give people as an alternative to this? Where is the alternative coming from? Where can we give people an alternative? And so we have moved a lot of our operations, or the center of our ideas, in two areas. One is, primary area is New York City. The secondary area, smaller, is San Francisco. Because there still exists in those communities a density of population which does not believe that what's going, has a mind in the population. Now, so what can we give people? Now, on December, I believe it's December 2nd, Helga LaRouche addressed two conferences Helga LaRouche addressed two conferences in Tokyo, and this is very significant. This was the conference of the Innovative Forum, Asia Innovative Forum, and the other conference was the Canon Global Study. Now, the Asia Innovative Forum is founded by the former head of Sony and now creator of Quantum Leap. His name is Nobuyuki Ide. And they had the panel one was the international people, and then panel 2 and 3 were various younger people who were involved in various areas of innovation. And you had 5 people in this panel. You had The moderator was Daisuke Kotogawa. Daisuke Kotogawa was the IMF head for Japan, and he was in the Japanese finance ministry, and he's the one who organized the defense of Japan against the 2007-2008 crisis. And he's the one who ran the wiping out the bad debt. Okay, and he's somebody very significant, and he was the moderator. Then you had Helga as a speaker. You had Vladimir Yakunin, the former head of the Russian railways, close associate of Putin, who heads the World Forum. He was the third speaker. Helga was the second speaker. The fourth speaker was Paulo Nogueira Batista, the vice president of the New Development Bank. But he's actually the guy who designed the New Development Bank that is headquartered in Shanghai, of the BRICS. And the first speaker was the former head of the IMF, Dominique Strauss-Kahn. Welcome to Manhattan. Mr. Welcome to Manhattan. And now, Helga gave a presentation on how the One Belt, One Road is the way to defeat ISIS, is the way to defeat all of this stuff. Bring positive agreements for economic development, bring it in. Go all out, bring it in. And she also referenced the 19th century work of Henry C. Carey, the German economist Friedrich List, and how the Industrial Revolution that took place in Japan and in the late 1800s and in Germany was done on the basis of these ideas. So she's referencing that, and she went through the whole strategic situation, what's happening from this standpoint, that it is the One Belt, One Road, it is the development of all these areas, which is the absolute key to stopping this disintegration of civilization. And Yakunin, who spoke after her, said that everything Helga said is absolutely the case, and that the One Belt, One Road is totally coherent and integratable with Russia's economic policies and the Eurasian Union.
The customs union?
Well, yeah, the Eurasian Union.
Okay.
Okay. And Norberto, what's his name? Anyhow, Paulo, the Brazilian vice president of the BRICS New Development Bank, went into a detail of how the bank was set up and so forth. And it's going to start funding in April of 2016. It's going to start issuing loans, 2016. So now the significance of this is that in this, and then the Canon, in this one, in the Canon one, there were 300 people from government and corporations and Japanese industry were there. And similarly, there were all these other people at the Asian Innovative Forum. And this is the elite of Japan. And what this was done was to try to move Japan into orbit of these development projects, bring Japan in. And that's what this was about. And this is a very significant conference because these ideas were getting out to the entire upper strata of the Japanese government and the Japanese industrialists and manufacturers and so forth. And this is very important. And Helga played the role of giving them the political strategic briefing. That's what she did. And the others, now Dominique Strauss-Kahn gave a presentation on how the financial system is in very bad shape, but most people don't realize it. Most people in the financial community don't realize it. Of course, he helped make it that way. But nonetheless, and she had dinner with him across the way. She had to deal with him. Anyhow, they were not impressed with him, but nonetheless, he was there. And So this is the kind of intervention that we're doing, and it has to be done. Now, China, Xi Jinping is now in Africa, or has been in Africa. And they're putting together a $60 billion 3-year development package for Africa. And what they've said they learned from their mistakes. One of the things they're going to be big on is bringing Africans to get education and training, industrial training, manufacturing training, engineering training in China to return to Africa. So the Chinese are saying we want to industrialize Africa. They're not saying we want to develop this or develop that. They're talking about an industrialization of Africa. That's what the Chinese are talking about. They're not talking about just doing the usual. You know, we'll have a dam, we'll have this, we'll have that, you know. No, we're talking about developing an African industrial capability, which will then feed into their agricultural capability and so forth and so on. So now this brings me to the situation of the United States, which is the thing that really worries me the most, is the United States. The U.S. political situation is very, very disturbing, to put it mildly. And it's as disturbing as almost as disturbing as having Obama as president. And you have rage and irrationality taking over the electorate. You have the rage of the people who are blaming everything on the useless eaters, the lazy retards that are getting a free hand from the government. That's one faction of the Republican Party. People like Paul Ryan, people like Chris Christie are examples of that. Then you have the evangelicals, who used to be drug addicts or alcoholics, incurable alcoholics, who made a conversion and surrendered their hearts, their souls to the preacher. And these people are waiting for the end times. And they have become a political force. And their issues are gay marriage, abortion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The straight and narrow path. And there is no concept of the world. There's no concept that America has a place in the world. It's just a religious psychosis. Then the third grouping in the primarily Republican Party, and also outside the Republican Party, are angry white people. Just enraged white people. You know, we used to be a great country. What's happened to our country? We got a nigger in the White House. What's happened? You know, blah, blah, blah. You know, he's a Muslim. He's working with ISIS. What's going on? Benghazi, why don't they show it? You know, an endless, you know, it's everything, but it's just rage. It's pure rage. And Donald Trump has captured that constituency. He's done a good job of capturing that constituency. That's what's driving his popularity. Okay. Then you go to the Democratic Party. What do you have there? Well, you have among the progressives, you have the pro-Glass-Steagall crowd. They want Glass-Steagall. They want to put the banks into bankruptcy. They want a national credit system. But for what purpose? Environmentalism, the green agenda, solar power, windmills, make work. You have a profound contradiction there. You have a profound contradiction there, right? So that's the best group. That's not good. So you have the green fascism taking over. And you have this idea. These people are running around like, oh, no, global warming is more dangerous than nuclear war. You know, and it's just totally disconnected, because they're like, there's like this competing reality, you know, which is the most threatening thing, going to nuclear war with Russia, or the seas rising and everything gets drowned out. And it's all confusion. And so we have a mess in the United States. Go ahead.
Obama said the best thing we can do about ISIS is to have a climate conference. And a lot of them are saying that ISIS was created by climate change.
Okay. All right. Take care. Yeah. Okay. All right. So anyhow, I'm going to stop there and open it up for questions. Okay.
ISIS was created by climate.
Oh yeah, no. They say they're saying climate change is causing the economic conditions, which is causing the growth of ISIS. It's total bullshit. It's total bullshit.
So
It's just bullshit.
how do ISIS religion of ideology fit in with climate change?
It doesn't matter. They do it. It's just they say it. They say it. It's just insanity. It's just lies. And they just say it. And people say, well,
Another soundbite to repeat.
yeah.
What's wrong with Americans?
What 50 years of trauma? 50 years of trauma.
I'll have to inform you, I'm also a Mexican.
And soon to be Canadian.
And I just got my Canadian citizenship certificate. So I'm a mixture. No, I had the advantage of not coming to the United States till I was 9.
You're one of those guys, when they go out, Americans go out, and they said, there's some angry guy who's yelling at him, oh, I'm not an American, I'm a Canadian.
Yeah. No, but the main thing is, the United States has been severely targeted culturally, you know,
For a long time.
for a long time. In the more modern period, you had the Vietnam War was a turning point. You had very serious problems in the United States before the Vietnam War. But when the Vietnam War occurred, they used that to send an entire generation into the rock, drug, sex counterculture. And then they created an anti-rock, drug, sex counterculture movement of religious fanatics that either came out of that or were opposed to that. And then you had all these different things occur, and the population lost a sense of them being part of a country, the idea of a nation, the idea of, and the population has been going downhill ever since. So now, all these people, their world is coming to an end. The Bertrand Russell world of psychotic conflicts between cultural crises, between cultural identities, between misconceived identities, is all coming to an end. These people's world is coming to an end. Their belief in who they are and what they are is all coming to an end. And the question is, what do we give them as an alternative? That's the whole issue, really.
I don't think I agree with that. I don't see these people as able to do that. I don't, like, if you said to them, okay, you're gonna lose, you know, this world is coming to an end, but we'll give you this, do you really think they would accept that?
Well, what I mean by giving them something, I mean giving them a concept, an idea.
You're talking about the drug addicts, like, I mean.
No, what I mean is this. What I mean by giving them something is, I'll explain. In New York, we have a music renaissance starting in New York. That's what we mean by giving people
But
something.
we're talking about the rich elite, right?
No,
When you say that, okay.
no, we're talking about,
Okay.
no, we're not talking about the rich elite. I'm not talking about
Forget-
I'm not going to talk about them.
forget it.
Their world's going to come to an end too, but I'm not concerned about them.
Okay, I thought you thought somehow you were going to pacify them.
No. I'm talking about the population in general. I'm talking about human beings. You know, I'm not talking about the 1% or the 0.5% or the 0.1%. I don't know whether they're human or not. I'm not going to go there. I don't want to go there. I'm assuming they might be human, but you know.
Or aliens in human form.
Oh, you had to say that. Okay.
Don't bring up the aliens.
Go ahead.
Doesn't go anywhere.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hey, I came here to have some fun.
The point you were speaking to on the sense of you know, with the mass shootings and the sense of hopelessness and this all pervasive sickness that's pervading society. I mean, if you look at the psychosis of 30 or 40 years of war, of state violence at the level that's been exhibited by the American government continuously for the last 40 years.
Around the world, yeah.
And if you have drone strikes killing people indiscriminately without rule of law, if you go to war without rule of law, if you perform social violence on whole groups of people systematically and systemically, so it's the point that they're in a form of slavery, even though they may not have the chains on. You know, of course you're going to have violence. You see, they're very opposed to personal violence, but they're not opposed to state violence or high levels of state violence or exporting, being the third biggest arms seller in the world, exporting violence everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
This comes home to roost in the psychoses
Obviously.
of the whole country. And so what you're seeing is a manifestation of that, a loss of hope, a loss of direction. We've raised up two or three generations of kids under climate change, where we blame our children for the situation in the world and give them no hope or direction, like as if we can't solve these problems. You know, and this is what we're teaching them in the school. So what's left? You know what? This is the question you arrive at. What's left? So we need to provide the hope. We need to provide the direction, which is what the Manhattan Project is about.
Right.
Which is what BRICS is about. Which is what the AIIB is about. Which is what all these development issues are about. Because without direction and hope, we're not going to solve any of these problems. We're just going to do the spiral right down into Third World War. You know?
Right. Well, that's where that's happening very fast. And
Yes.
go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, there was something really interesting about this last shooting. I don't know if you guys saw on CNN the lawyer talking about it.
Oh, I forgot to mention what that was. Go ahead.
Oh.
No, go ahead.
Okay. And he was questioning the whole thing. He was saying, why were they found handcuffed, laying all shot up in the, and so finally the reporter said, well, do you not, I can't remember exact words, but it was kind of like, do you not believe this happened? And he said, well, there's just a lot of things that don't make any sense at all.
Okay.
He said this girl that did it, the wife was 90 pounds and she wouldn't even hardly be able to, he said they were not military people. There's no way they could have done this. This is the lawyer on CNN.
And the third shooter, 10 witnesses have said there was a third shooter.
Okay.
And they can't find him.
Okay. Right? So this whole thing is very weird because nothing adds up and nothing makes any sense. And you know, you try to find out what actually happened, no one will tell you. Right? In the media. Maybe if you were there, you might have some idea, but
that's right.
But if you're in media. Now, one of the things that we've picked up is the massive pressure from the Obama administration on the FBI to prevent them from linking anything to the Islamic aspect because it's ISIS. It might be seen as ISIS, or maybe it is ISIS. So there is an effort to stamp out any evidence of a Islamic connection or Islamic ideological connection or an ISIS connection. Now, the ISIS thing, you have to understand, ISIS is not a centralized operation. It's decentralized. They have cells everywhere, and they don't necessarily control directly from the top the triggering of these cells. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But the point I'm getting at is Obama does not want this attributed to anybody with an Islamic situation, because he has promised the United States that the ISIS problem has been contained. So this may be a factor, and I don't know, but it may be a factor in what you're talking about, because there is this massive come down from the White House to suppress any evidence of an Islamic aspect.
So
Well, there's a
one
lot-
of the
a lot of
stories is
time
Muslim again, like,
between the incident and when they actually caught up with these people and killed them.
Is what?
Several hours.
But they didn't say that they caught up with them till later.
As I say, that they caught up with them and killed them
Yeah, I heard that. I heard
some
that.
hours later. So in other words, their perimeter didn't work, they got away.
It's just amazing how the whole perimeter of the whole.
But according to other people, the guy was known to the people there because he worked there. So it's
And
very,
he killed apparently a lot of coworkers.
yeah. So this is all very confusing. And again, I think a part of the confusion lies in the pressure coming from the White House.
And also I mean, I don't know if it's Obama or Obama administration, they're linking the shooting. I mean, they're saying that we need to have arm controls, like, to
Yeah.
control the weapon
Right.
in the United States. So any shooting happening in the United States, they always push for the gun control.
Yeah, it's as if that's going to solve it, you know.
They had 20, 30 pipe bombs ready to go that were in the garage. The woman across the
But that's what we're being told. I mean,
Yeah.
I never see any pictures.
Right,
I never see-
right.
It's
And
like
I meant to
15 minutes
bring-
this stuff's coming out.
I meant to bring that in as
Yeah.
one of the things that happened in this period with which has, go ahead.
Oh, well, it will unrelated but related. The decision has come through. It was very quiet about the investigation into the medicine sans frontières. And
The what?
the Doctors Without Borders
Yeah,
in Afghanistan, that it was just a low-level grouping that had made
Mistake.
a mistake.
Yeah.
For
It was the corporals and
an hour,
sergeants
5
again.
minutes.
The corporals and sergeant runs the American Army now.
Yeah.
Whenever there's a criminal activity, they get charged because they are responsible. Nobody in the high command give them any orders. They just the corporals and
So
sergeants
this
run
was,
everything.
this was their conclusion, and to me, this is the kind of thing that the youth are absorbing, like by osmosis. And this is the kind of thing that's so demoralizing to the
Yes.
youth, because they know that it's lies and they see it.
They sense it.
They cannot
I mean,
control the population.
And there was a Saudi attack in the past couple of days at a Doctors Without Borders unit in Yemen.
Oh.
And I think it involved 9 people. They
Right.
didn't say whether they were all killed or
Right.
injured. But, you know, when I look at these youth that are panhandling and, you know, they may not read the papers religiously, but they sure go to the internet when they can. And they just absorb this sort of depressing, fatalistic, beyond their control. How can these guys keep getting away with it? I found, and so I don't know, there hasn't been any response that I'm aware of from the Doctors Without Borders, because they initially wanted an international investigation.
and they're still pushing for it. They're not
As
giving
far as I
up.
know, it's still her.
No, it's not going away.
But that little decision, that decision where they're blaming it on
Right.
incompetence and mistakes.
And you destroy the morale of your military this way.
Yeah.
You destroy the integrity of the people under your command. They become corrupt, or they end up having PTSD, and so on and so
They
forth.
also just announced that women are going to be allowed to go to front
All
line.
frontline services now are open to them.
Services are going to be open to women. Maybe they think that that's a sort of an angle to increase enrollment in the army as opposed to doing a conscription, which they really should do. To my.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're running out of people, and so they're
You
gonna.
can only recycle somebody so many times.
Yeah. Before they go on Medicaid, you know.
If I was American, I would put forth a constitutional amendment that any person that was going to be president should have served in one of the armed forces. I wouldn't.
No, you don't want to do that.
Why not?
Why not?
Because it does. Forces.
No, yeah, the armed forces are a bureaucracy
You
too.
still have
Yeah.
provisions for conscientious
Yeah, it's-
objection,
it's-
et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I understand the sentiment there, but
One of the things.
you don't want to have constitutional amendments for anything unless it's like,
You know what? It's ironic because Tulsi Gabbard is a perfect example of why that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
And John Kane is a perfect example of why that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's both sides of it.
yeah. I mean, but there is an aspect of that.
We're coming back to the alien thing. We're gonna be cornering them to the point where it's, okay, those guys are not human beings. Okay.
Adam had to say it.
That's the one.
Adam can't leave it alone, you know. He's gotta throw it out there.
Could you repeat, Adam? Could you repeat that? I didn't understand.
It was called the aliens.
What about the aliens?
Well, we were saying that we cannot say that they have to have military background or this and that. So I say, okay, it doesn't matter who came into the administration or become a president, as long as they're like, they're not human. They're not connected to human beings. Yeah.
So aliens, in other
It
words.
doesn't matter alien. If they become an alien, it doesn't matter they were human. They're like military or non-military, but they're aliens. They have to.
You have to be a little bit more specific. Islamic, alien, Christian.
Yeah, they're a little different, that's right.
I'll accept the aliens as a metaphor. As a metaphor, only as a metaphor.
Paul,
Go ahead.
yeah, the bottom line is what Russell said, that really high-minded individuals aren't concerned with the happiness of others. That tells you everything.
That's
And all this stuff that, like, you want to have humor, that's fine.
That explains it, yeah.
Yeah. So is that being a high-minded individual mean that you have a knowledge that human beings don't have?
They're concerned
Yes.
about themselves. The high-mindedness is their own wealth.
The elite. He means the elite. Yeah. High-minded individuals means the elite. Yeah.
Yeah, they have their own.
Okay.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Interest.
The hotline,
Human race.
when was there has been a hotline between.
During the Cold War,
when
between the
was it
presidents.
removed?
Obama has stopped using it.
Oh, so it's there, but he just won't pick up.
It's
the
not
line.
there. Obama won't have a discussion with Putin.
Well, why would you? I'm good, I can win, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
I don't need a phone to talk to anybody.
Yeah, but it's also, it's. I mean, what we didn't say is that there is a new system coming in. It's moving fast. It's about a year and a half ago. It's only a year and a half ago that the BRICS came in. And look what's happening. I mean, it's moving fast. The whole rearrangement of the world is occurring. And this is a response to that. This is the end of their system. Their system is coming to an end. Why? Because you have a China with 5,000 years of civilization. You have an India with something similar, and you have a humanity which isn't going to be slaves. You have a human race that isn't going to be slaves. Like the Chinese, man, they're talking big leap scientifically, technologically, huge leaps. They're planning to move almost. They're planning things that America would be thinking of if Kennedy had lived. I mean, they're doing the things. It's incredible what they're planning, and they're moving fast. It's not something that's 10 years away. I mean, they're moving to set it up.
But the forces of empire are us as well.
Yes.
You have to understand this.
Yeah.
They're certainly not have been neutralized, nor are they.
No.
Nor are they stagnant in what they're trying to do. They're actively moving against everybody and all things that are trying to bring that into being.
Right. So now it comes to the nuclear war issue.
Whether it's nuclear or not, if you look at it logically, we probably all in this room agree that what you just said is true, that they're moving forward. Think about it like really just simply for a minute. They either back down, probably not, right?
Who?
The empire's not going to back down.
They either back down or somebody stops them. I don't see any other option.
Okay, they either back down or they shatter.
Or
Yeah, somebody stops them, shattered. I would use the term shattered.
So somebody stops them would mean, you know, the whole world comes out in the street and says, shut it down, we've had enough. That's probably not gonna happen.
That's that's a bit.
Okay.
Dangerous,
So-
because they can go.
So then the other way is war.
Okay.
Yeah, they're gonna go to war.
I mean, we have
Okay,
to realize that
okay.
that's maybe the good.
Okay, now it's time. It's time for me to unveil the LaRouche master plan. Okay,
I was just gonna ask you, how should we appease the
okay,
point where they?
okay,
Yeah, exactly, they either win, they either.
okay,
win, or-
okay.
Yeah, like what are the
Okay.
options?
The master plan of the LaRouche movement is the economic crisis, is the hammer, and the Russian nuclear arsenal is the anvil.
Is the what?
Anvil.
Anvil.
Hammer and anvil.
Okay. The anvil, and then the hammer, okay? And the idea is this, is that now the Russia nuclear arsenal has been joined by the BRICS, or the BRICS have been joined by the nuclear arsenal of Russia. Now, the anvil is hard. If you go too far, you have nuclear war. But on the other hand, the hammer, which is the financial disintegration, is going to wipe the empire out. So, who in the empire wants to go to nuclear war, and who in the empire would rather not go to nuclear war and make a deal? Okay? And that's really what's going on here. On a deeper level, this is what's really going on. The factor that you have, the problematic factor is insanity. That's your problematic factor. Okay, that's your problematic factor. Because if you have somebody who's insane, then it doesn't matter. They're not going to respond to reality. The reality is you don't want to go there because you're going to get wiped out in a nuclear war. It is better to work with the BRICS than die in a nuclear war. However, if you're insane, it doesn't matter to you. This is the problem. You're hitting it right on the nail. Okay, you're hitting it right on the nail. So how do you break up the empire? Now, the empire is breaking up right now. The French president wanted to make a deal with Russia. The German prime minister wanted to make a deal with, the German chancellor wanted to make a deal with Russia. What happened? Bang! Obama came down on them. Bang! Obama came down on Merkel, right? So now, would a Hillary Clinton, if she were president right now, would she want to go to nuclear war? It's the last. Would she do it? Probably not.
I don't know.
I don't know. I know you don't know.
That's it.
That's an iffy one. But I wouldn't think that she would. I don't think she would.
I think she's sleepwalking.
I think she's sleepwalking. I think you're right.
She's-
Okay. If Joseph Biden was president, would he be wanting to go to nuclear war? He's a little nutty, but you know, probably not. Would Mitt Romney go to nuclear war?
No.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Would John McCain go to nuclear war? I'm not so sure.
I just remember you saying that.
I'm not so sure.
What, the gates of hell have opened, they're open now, like when they were going to Iraq?
What was this?
When they were going to Iraq, John McCain was supporting the war in Iraq. He said that the gates of hell are open now.
Yeah.
So I don't know what he meant.
That part is true, but
Yeah.
that's the way he's.
So
Not the way he was saying it.
Yeah.
So that's the significance of it. And Russia's intervention in Syria is letting them know that Russia was not going to let civilization collapse into this sea of blood that's now being prepared. But what's driving the people, you know, that the Saudis and the Turks are supporting and everything. Now, I personally believe that the Russians are preparing with some help from within the United States, covert assistance from certain circles in the United States. I think he's preparing to bring down Erdogan.
Who is? Erdogan.
Erdogan.
Erdogan, right.
Putin.
In Turkey.
Yeah. And I think,
So another regime change.
yeah,
Another regime
One more
change.
regime change.
yes, a different kind of regime change, not from the streets, but from the military.
Turkey is so, like, it's so strategically,
It has been.
it's so
In
problematic.
history, historically, it holds a very.
So
Right, and-
problematic.
I'm suspecting also there's the Russians are putting pressure on shifting the Saudis as well.
So-
And
What
the-
about Korea? Sorry.
But the Saudis can't be trusted. The Obama can't trust the Saudis. They will shift to go with the Russians.
Who can trust the Saudis?
Nobody can trust the Saudis.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the problem is Obama. If you have Obama out, that changes everything.
But there is a layer above that, right?
underneath.
Yes, but they don't have control like they don't not controlling the situation as they were before. They have control of the situation by manipulation, by setting up scenarios, by controlling the politicians, what have you. But now they're not in control anymore.
I would say not the same degree.
No,
They're still getting.
the man who's running the show is not the oligarch. It's Vladimir Putin and LaRouche
Because he's
And
ahead of
Xi
the curve.
Jinping.
and Xi Jinping. They're running the show now.
Well, it's like this.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And the way I'm saying, what I'm saying is that they're responding to them. Okay?
I get that.
Yeah, and the other thing is they now depend on Obama to hold it together. He's not, they just can't play musical chairs at this point. Because if they bring somebody else in, they won't necessarily go to nuclear war, and therefore the nuclear war threat is not credible. So Obama's playing nuclear chicken with the Russians right now. That's what's going on.
I don't know what kind of world we want, I mean, post a nuclear war.
They,
Hence,
Yeah.
hence him being insane.
there's several aspects of this.
Yeah.
One is maybe we could get away with it. Another aspect of it is if we're not going to run things, then who cares? Another aspect of it is
Get rid of some people.
get rid of some people. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you see, the problem is when you lie and you run a society on lies, even if you understand that you're lying, at a certain point, if you ever successfully lie and you maintain successful lies over many decades and centuries, what happens is you come to the belief that your lies can work in the ultimate sense, that if with enough force, enough manipulation, enough whatever, you can control the situation. And it doesn't work that way. At some point, the oligarchy loses control of the situation, and they did. They did with Adolf Hitler. They lost control of Adolf Hitler, and they put him in there. They had him profile pegged. He was going to go. And Hitler thought the British were going to be his partners the whole time, and he was shocked that they didn't support him. But then again, they weren't going to let him run the world. But they did not foresee that Hitler would get out, that events would not occur such that Hitler would be in a position like he became. And so then they came to the United States to get them out of it. And FDR intended to take down the empire, but he could not control the picking of the vice president in 1944, and that was the turning point. The turning point was in 1944 when and the British were able to delay the war long enough, because if the war had concluded earlier, then FDR would have been in a much better position to dismantle the British Empire, even if he only had another year or so to live.
Well, he would have had Henry Wallace taken over.
He would have been more in control of the process. Go ahead.
I forgot. I was gonna say, it seems to me that the Americans don't realize that they're the target. I mean, ultimately, it's the United States, it's the Republic that's the targeted
Right.
by Britain. Britain never gives up anything.
Right.
Even ostensibly,
Well,
they're
where's it taken
African
from?
colonies. And that's what the United States, and I'm surprised that the word fascism doesn't come up more often. That there's a fascist attack against
United States.
the United States, the Republic.
They don't associate with the Republic anymore.
I
United
know,
States-
that's the thing, they don't.
Right,
don't
so they
teach
wouldn't
that
find
in
it,
school.
so they don't find it offensive. They don't see the offense. Because they don't understand what they represented. They don't even know their
Yeah,
history.
so they don't, but they don't have a sense of being, to me, it seems that they're being under attack. That's the United States. It's the British getting their.
No, it's the Muslims, it's the Mexicans coming across the border.
Somebody else.
It's the drug
It's the
lords,
government.
Yeah.
you know, it's not, no, they,
Also, sorry, I was gonna ask, we haven't said anything about the Crimea flank with,
well, they just got the first,
General.
the first line in to deliver about a third of the power that they need, and they sped up the process of putting in the new
Yeah, they're pulling huge cables right across the water,
Yeah.
sinking them, and then we're gonna hook them into the Russian grid.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I heard that they were attacking the people that were
Well-
trying to repair the.
No, yeah, they've tried numerous times to get it back from Ukraine, but they keep blocking them. They keep attacking those guys that are working.
yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Speaking of the hammer, the IMF just announced that the yuan is now a world reserve currency.
Yeah, the yuan
Yeah.
Is now the world currency?
is now one of the world
One of
It's a big
currencies.
step.
It's part of the SDR, Special Drawing Rights System. I don't really fully understand what that means, but it means that
It's competing with the dollar.
it's considered a world currency, a reserve currency. That means you can hold it as a reserve.
Like-
Now,
That's a big move, actually.
Huge.
the Chinese are trying to work out a system where they can channel. Okay,
How that gonna mean for
Okay.
China? Because
they want to work out a system where they can channel their currency into being used all over the world for development.
yeah,
But they don't want the currency to be another speculative
No.
instrument, right? So what the Chinese are trying to do is control where the currency is used, but they want it to be somewhat convertible because they want to be able to have people take the currency and use it in the United States and Europe and Africa, etc., rather than having to go with dollars and euros, which they've been doing up until now. They've been using primarily dollars and euros to carry out the investment. But the Chinese people have a storehouse of $15 trillion worth of yuan that they want to be able to funnel into development projects all over the world.
okay.
They're already
And,
doing it in Africa, right?
Yeah, they're already doing it in Africa. Yeah. So they want to do that because it's this money is the savings that the Chinese have created from their salaries, or from 1 billion plus people have created this amount of savings. It's not being used in a way that it can't just be used in China. It has to flow out of China into the rest of the world. It has to be used in the rest of the world, and that's a real problem for them. But then if the money's gonna flow out of China to be used in the rest of the world, you gotta have the infrastructure being built so that there's something to invest in. Because if you don't have the infrastructure being created, the One Belt, One Road, then you don't have the ability to develop an area. The mining, the manufacturing, the distribution, the agriculture, whatever. You don't have it connected in a way that you can actually make an investment that has value, because if you don't have a way to get there by rail, you don't have a way to invest. So all of that is what the Chinese are trying to do. They're trying to create a way for them to finance these developments without the currency being used as a speculative instrument.
Yeah, well,
And I don't know if they can succeed in doing that.
that brings it really close to home here in Vancouver. I mean, all the consortium of Chinese, Chinese form a consortium. They just have a war chest of money, so to speak, and they come in here and they're just taking real estate to the maximum
Yeah.
and just pushing everybody else
Right.
out.
Yeah.
It's a
That's
real
why we
problem.
need, that's why we need taxes on speculation, big taxes.
Yeah.
But that's
How's that gonna
speculative,
get controlled?
but that's speculative.
What about the,
Yeah, that's not healthy.
It's not.
No, but if they were to build a high-speed rail system, use it to build a high-speed rail system, that would be different.
That would have a huge impact here in BC. For if the yuan to become one of the world currencies.
Yeah.
Because the Chinese population here and the economic impact they have here actually on BC.
Yeah, they have a huge economic impact. Go ahead.
I don't know if you're aware what the Saudis are doing, but the war is not going well for them in Yemen, nor is it going well for the United Arab Emirates. Saudi prince bought Blackwater, now named something else, the mercenary outfit.
Yeah.
They are now recruiting mercenary armies. They went to South America. They went everywhere where the Chileans, everybody. And because their soldiers are not fighting well for them in Yemen, they're now recruiting mercenary armies, this Saudi prince, from all over the world to ship. And I mean by the thousands. We're talking the death squads again are being moved into Yemen by the Saudi prince that bought Blackwater.
When did they do that?
Last maybe 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they're using the money to win the war in Yemen.
Yes, because it's going badly. The Yemenis sunk their third Saudi frigate. Now those missiles were brought from Iran by camelback, by dog, by horse, drove over the sand, and all the way in, and then set up and sunk. They've sunk 3 frigates of the Saudis in the Gulf,
So
and that's by like thousands of guys packing a piece to deliver it to the site, to set it up, and then shoot it at a Saudi frigate, which are worth about 200 million a copy or more.
200 million?
Yeah.
how do they get past those other Emirates, like, the Bahrains and all those, like?
You're asking how the Houthis are doing it? I have no idea. But these are very determined.
Better not to ask.
Maybe one part of CIA is guiding them.
Somebody's helping. That's right, guys. But I mean, it shows you how serious.
That's this brings up a very troubling feature, the mercenary issue.
It's huge. Yeah.
And this is where the 2 principal Americans who were promoting the mercenary issue, one of them was former Secretary of State George Shultz, and the other was the former banker Felix Rohatyn. They're both in their late 90s now, and they basically, Dick Cheney was part of this later on, but they were promoting the idea of shifting to a mercenary issue.
People motivated by.
Yeah, and this is very deep. This goes very deep because the whole concept of a nation is that you have people who are willing to take up arms to defend the nation.
The nation, yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And this was one of the revolutions in warfare that took place in the Renaissance, but it was developed further in the United States with the militias. Militias under George Washington. And this was a key feature of ending the feudal system, because the feudal system was run on mercenaries, a mercenary system where all the wars were done by people who were paid, and you had a class of thugs who were mercenaries, and that's who they used to invade or to conquer or to whatever. And that kind of system was challenged by the idea of a city-state, of somebody who's going to represent the city You know, so what the idea was that the average citizen is trained in enough military science to be able to defend the city in times of crisis. And that is and that's what they're doing away with, this idea. And mercenaries, and that means mercenaries everywhere. I mean, it's very ugly. But the Saudis obviously don't have people that want to fight for the crown. Go ahead, Kevin.
They're making babies, right?
Kevin, go ahead.
Is this what's meant in the Second Amendment by well-regulated militia?
Yeah,
Well-regulated militia.
yeah. Okay.
I heard that 14,000 migrants went missing in Sweden.
Yeah,
What?
Did you hear that 14,000 migrants have just gone missing in Sweden?
I read that too.
I don't know anything about that.
14,000.
Oh,
What happened, 40,000?
Refugees or migrants?
Refugees or?
Well, they call them,
They call them both. If this is the other way, they split that whole
What
argument.
they say, it just disappeared?
Just disappeared, yeah. Apparently they were to be deported and they vanished.
Wow, that's
Sweden?
that's
Don't
like
say
how-
aliens.
Well, I don't know about the source, and I don't know about anything. That's just, could be somebody just tooting their horn, but we don't know. It's possible.
That would be like a well-organized system where they have to.
Well, speaking of mercenaries.
Yeah.
Okay. You got the two EIRs? You got the latest
I
EIRs?
got- yeah.
Okay.
thanks.
I have another question. When was the last time US had any serious leader?
When was the last time what?
A leader, not a president, a
Oh,
real,
like a Kennedy
a
type
real
leader?
leader.
Probably Kennedy.
You mean in the US?
Yeah.
Okay. You had, the last time you had a leader with a vision was
Kennedy.
Kennedy.
After that.
Lyndon Baines Johnson was not a bad guy, but he thought he was going to be assassinated if he didn't do what he was told.
So you got that.
But the only other two guys who had some potential, who didn't really fully materialize for a number of reasons. One was Ronald Reagan, and the other was Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
The case of Ronald Reagan was that he was prepared to take control of the government after he was inaugurated and go with these policies. And LaRouche was in the middle of this. And then he was shot. And he was out for quite a while. He was near death for quite a while. And he was out for quite a while. And he lost the momentum of being able to put these things together. And it threw the whole situation off. And the Bush crowd was able to get their teeth in. And that's what was one of the problems.
Reagan made the mistake of getting Bush as his VP, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah. And there's a long story behind that. But
Is there any chance
Of getting a leader.
getting a leader just such as Kennedy or what's his name?
I think at this point there aren't any.
I don't think there is any.
The only person who's shown this quality
Yeah.
of leadership is very young. She's only 34 years old.
She's very young.
No.
Oh, well, no offense to the lady.
She's a Hawaiian congressman.
Right.
She's of Indian origin.
Her name is Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
She's a very unusual person. She became a city council member of Honolulu when she was in her early 20s.
How did she do that?
She was very political.
Yeah.
Her father was of Samoan background, and her mother is a Hindu.
Mhm.
Yes,
She loves Modi.
yeah, she's a Hindu, but she's also a veteran of the Iraq. But she's the only one I've seen. The only one I've seen that has this quality in her of I don't care. I'm not here. I'm here to tell you. I'm here to say it. I don't care. She's the only. She took on the DNC, and she was barred from being at the first Democratic Party debate. I've seen of her so far is she's the only person with that kind of quality of courage. And really, that's the issue for leadership at this point.
Too far away from being the main.
Right, but the fact that she's I'm not saying she's going to become the president. I'm just saying, when you asked the question, I said there wasn't any, but then I thought about it and I said there's one person who's showing that kind of quality, of an uncompromising quality, and a capacity to be very direct and focused.
Yeah, you need a president that has support of the military, support of the.
No, I'm talking about a competent leader as president.
Yes, I keep saying 100% a leader.
Right.
It doesn't-
Now, outside of that, I don't see anybody on the horizon who could fulfill that role. However, if you have somebody who's not insane, they could have a team of people function. And that's what we're trying to put together, is a team of people to function once Obama's removed, to function and deal with the crisis.
Do you think Obama's gonna get removed? What, is that your belief? Just on a personal level, Paul, I'm
It's
not.
only 13 months.
He's got it 14 months.
By the time it's be over.
I'll tell you what I really think. Okay. LaRouche's strategy is to set him up. And Putin's strategy is to set him up.
Yeah.
So he goes off the deep end and is removed. That's the strategy.
Set him up in a what?
Is to actually cause him to go off. Not to try to keep him from going off, but to get him to go off in a way that he gets removed.
Psychologically?
Yes, that's the strategy.
But then you're risking a war, right?
Yes, we are.
Very clearly, yes.
I'd say the other alternative.
But we have no other option, because it's going to come to nuclear war no matter what, because of the underlying
Yeah, because you can see how.
because the underlying tragedy that's in the making. You know, you have to.
Paul, you keep bringing up this nuclear war thing, right? If there is going to be one,
Huh?
if there is going to be one, it's the end of the world, right?
It's the end of humanity as we know
So why would anybody do that?
it, because they're not sane.
The alien part.
Okay, we agreed you weren't gonna say
Because
that.
the elites don't want to live in a world that they're not in control.
Yeah.
That's
So
insane.
they're like, what
We
is
have
that?
to be in
The
control.
Russians of the world.
The what?
The guy in, the religious cult leader who.
Oh, Koresh.
Correction.
No, you're talking about Guyana.
The
You're
guy
talking about
Jimmy Jones.
Jimmy Jones, yeah.
Jimmy Jones,
Yeah.
they go with everybody else.
It's Jimmy Jones syndrome.
Yeah,
No,
Kool-Aid.
Yeah, go ahead. You had a question earlier. Go ahead.
Would you say that the news media is trying to confuse people's perception with regard to the allegation they say that China has gone to what they call a basket of currencies? This is what I've heard the news media report.
Basket of carrots.
No.
Yeah.
No. It's not a basket of currencies. It's the International Monetary Fund has declared that China's currency is now a reserve currency.
Reserve currency.
It's not a basket of currencies.
Along with other.
With it's along with the euro,
Yeah.
the dollar, the yen, and the pound.
Okay.
So you got
five currencies.
Five now. You had four before. I don't know about the Swiss franc. I don't think the Swiss franc is in that category. So
But who, of that five, who's solid and who isn't really?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I know the Chinese are solid.
That's why they didn't China on board.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A few years ago, no, it's not aliens. It's a back to earth thing.
Good.
Okay, a few years ago, the Western world was pushing for China to devalue its currency, right? Like they were pushing for that.
no, not to the value, to up value.
No, sorry, to raise the value.
Yes.
China was pushing for devaluing its
And China was trying to keep it low.
low. So by China now saying that the yuan is now a reserve currency now, are they willing now to raise it from it?
Okay, let me explain. That's a very, very good question. Okay, that's an excellent question. Okay. At the time, okay, China's move to make their currency more convertible is not something which has come about because all of a sudden they decided to make it more convertible. It's because they're transitioning from a primarily agriculturally based society to an industrial and now a high-tech based society. Now, when they were in the primarily agricultural based society, they didn't want their currency rates raised because they wanted to keep the value of the agriculture because otherwise, if they didn't do that, if they raised the price, then it would essentially allow for the dumping of agriculture on China. In other words, Chinese agriculture was protected by the low value of the low value of the yuan. But if they made it competitive, then it would undermine their agriculture. But now they're shifting out of agricultural to a much more mechanized agricultural system. And they're going into industry more and what have you. The peasants are moving to the cities. The farms are getting bigger. And as a result, and the food is becoming more intensively agricultural. So now the question for them is, how do they reach out to the rest of the world so that they can go to the next level? To go to the next level requires that they involve the rest of the world and that the rest of the world be involved with them. And they can't do that if their currency is non-convertible. But they don't want to have the inflation and the speculation. See, that's the difference. So where they were 10 years ago and where they are now are two different things. That's what I'm saying.
And they have when they are now like reserve currency, they have the power to choose where they're going to invest. Like, when you have reserve currency like United States dollar, euro, when Europe or America, you want to help like nations in Africa, they always attach conditions.
What it means is if you're in a third world country or you're in another country, right? You can sell your goods to China and have yuan, and then use the yuan that you have to trade with Europe or the United States or whenever. That's what it means. It's huge.
Yeah, I know, but
But
I don't know.
otherwise,
I'm thinking, what is my benefit?
Otherwise the Chinese would have to give you dollars. Chinese would have to find the dollars to give you because you're getting yuan from China means nothing. You couldn't use it. Am I right on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of.
But it also facilitates them moving into an industrial development type stage.
Yeah.
Because it allows them to trade with other countries and to use their currency and have it recognized that.
That's a reserve currency.
As a reserve currency, yes.
So what about all the US dollars that they accumulated?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I was thinking earlier.
Well, they've used those dollars. They use those dollars.
They had a lot of them.
But it's not enough. All the dollars they have, which is in the trillions, is not enough for what they want to do. They want to go. They want to go big. It's not enough. They need to expand beyond that.
Yeah, okay. Talking about it.
And also, they're shifting out of being a massive export surplus economy to much more of a balanced.
It's inevitable, right? It's gonna happen.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
And they have to create the markets that are going to buy their products too.
Yeah.
Right.
When you were saying they want to go big.
They are going big.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're thinking they want to go big.
They want to eat Africa.
Oh, that's scary.
This is Africa. Okay, this is Africa. This is China.
I was just gonna say, where are they gonna find the energy? Like, where are they gonna find massive amount of energy?
Well, because their commitment's nuclear.
Okay, that's
like, what do you mean, to go into Africa or?
no, to develop, and And that's why,
And they're gonna, based on the oil, like spending, like it's gonna create a lot of war.
no, it's gonna be based on nuclear and then later fusion.
Well, listen, there was a show on TV.
Yeah.
where they were
I don't
showing
know, chasing the oil.
the number of nuclear power plants currently under construction in China.
Yeah, 113 right now.
113 under construction.
Yes. And I think
And the United States only has about 90.
4 just came online in the last month, and then they've got another 6 coming online in the new year. The Chinese do.
There's a whole bunch of plans which they haven't started yet.
So they're going nuclear.
They're going nuclear.
That's
And they're pushing into molten salt reactors. I just read a big article today. They've dumped a huge amount of money into that, as well as the Chinese gave the Egyptians billions of dollars towards nuclear energy as well.
It's just another side
Investment.
story. I'm talking about China eating me up.
one of the
Just a month ago, sorry.
one of the interesting things that I noticed occurred. You remember when they started the economic warfare against Zimbabwe because they were pushing aside the planters or whatever? Well, for a while, China was supplying them with farm machinery. But they apparently managed to choke that off.
What happened? I didn't
Zimbabwe?
Yeah, they were supplying farm machinery.
Pharmacy or
To Zimbabwe.
No, machinery.
Machinery, yeah.
Notably tractors.
From China, Chinese made
Yeah.
machinery to Zimbabwe
Yeah,
for agricultural production.
yeah, well, they're modernizing their agriculture, so
Yeah.
you need machinery.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we get it.
Yeah. I was gonna say earlier,
Fine,
the
but you need
Chinese,
petroleum so you can run the
Chinese are
machines.
working with the Sudanese government, which is genocide of dictatorial government, right? And what they did is they had a contract to build dams in North Sudan, and then they were allowed to bring in equipments and all their container without being inspected at the port in Port Sudan in Sudan. So what they did, to bring all those equipment in, they brought in nuclear waste along with it.
Nuclear what?
Nuclear waste.
Who did
Along
that?
with it. China. So.
Oh, you mean to use
Spent
Zimbabwe? Huh?
fuel. Spent fuel, nuclear waste.
Okay,
Nuclear waste,
to dump in.
drums of nuclear waste, and it was brought along under the name, okay, this is the construction equipment. And they built the dam and left the nuclear waste. They buried nuclear waste near there. Now it got discovered, and imagine, imagine the impact of the radiation and everything to the populations.
No, there's no impact of radiation from nuclear waste in the ground.
Oh, come on, Paul, now.
Yeah.
So you think it's okay for China to come and down?
I'm not saying it's okay, but I'm saying that.
I mean, the Sudanese government now is helpless.
Okay.
They can't do anything because we know it's
Adam,
government.
You need to take a course in nuclear physics. I mean, not nuclear engineering. You got to find out how this really works. That people get all excited about a nuclear waste situation, and they shouldn't.
Really?
Yeah. You need to look into it.
Chernobyl, I mean, I'm not trying to scare people. It's okay not to go and live in Chernobyl.
No. Nuclear waste can be. I don't know if that's true or not. First of all, but nuclear waste can be stored
And it can be recycled as well.
and recycled.
Okay, if that's true, why can't they store it in China?
Well, that's why I don't know if the story is true that they brought in the nuclear waste to Zimbabwe. I mean to Sudan.
Yeah, it did. They did.
I gotta look into it.
How do you know for sure?
21st century science and technology has a series of articles that Adam could get on.
Yeah, I'll send you. But it's important. It's important for you to know that.
I'm not against the Chinese, by the way.
Okay, it's important for you to know. I gotta look into that, whether or not they did that, because it doesn't make any sense. They could store it in China. Why ship it to?
But they might have paid officials in the corrupt government of Sudan to accept nuclear waste, but they don't tell anybody else what they're doing.
Well, and
So-
also there's these regulations, right, about where you can and cannot store.
Can and can't
And then
store it,
that
yeah.
gets into an international regulatory system,
Agency.
Well,
right, where they're mandating this.
I have to look into this allegation. I don't know. I have to look into it.
He's making an investigation.
to add
I have to look into it. Okay.
I'll get back to you.
But nuclear waste disposal is not some horrible thing. It's not a threat.
Okay.
The only problem, okay, if you store nuclear, and I'm not talking about recycling or anything, just if you store nuclear waste in a stable formation, it's not a problem. The problem in Hanford, Washington, is that it's not from nuclear reactors. It's from the bomb program. And it was never solidified into a solid and put in a safe place. And this was from the 40s, 1940s, 50s. Now,
that's a good question because I got another question.
okay, let me finish. The nuclear waste is in a soluble, in a solid formation is not a problem. The amount of radiation that gets out is very little. The problem is that this has been made into a huge thing, and it's not. It's just another. It's another bunch of lies and hysteria around it.
Yeah, I know. It could be scary.
Yeah. And people had an education in how nuclear power works, how the cycles of nuclear power work. It wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. Anyway, regarding World War II, America was bombing Spain or somewhere it was before there.
Bombing what?
Spain, World War II, right?
Spain.
Yeah. And then
I don't know. Was the U.S. bombing Spain in World War II?
Spain was not a combatant.
Spain was not a combatant.
So they weren't bombed?
No, there was a period where they had a civil war in the 30s,
Which the Germans got involved in.
which the Germans got involved, supporting
But they
Franco.
went to fight.
The Spanish Civil War ended in June.
But not during World War II. Spain was out of
The
that.
reason why I say
3 months,
this is,
and the big show starts.
the reason why I just read an article that said that Spain and the United States, they signed an agreement where the United States have to go and where they mistakenly bomb with the, nuclear, I don't know if it's nuclear or I don't know, some gun, dangerous bombs, and they got the soil out of that. They have to ship it out from it. I mean, actually, they get the soil from Spain and ship it to where they're gonna store it somewhere where it's safe, because that soil actually they are responsible for it because they're the one who bombed the area.
The soil is
Nuclear testing,
contaminated from
obviously.
a nuclear detonation.
Could be nuclear destination, I'm not sure, but they were saying from era preceding World War II.
All right, that's another allegation I got to look into.
That sounds suspicious.
Just be busy.
Well, I'll tell you about the story. There's a really good article on the LaRouche Pack archives.
Yeah.
Kevin just posted it not long ago called there.
I'm going to pass this around, folks.
Okay.
It looks like
There
we're
is
coming
no
to the end of the
such
meeting
thing
early.
as nuclear waste.
Okay.
Okay,
Nuclear
take care.
Nuclear waste.
Yeah, wasted fuel.
Yeah, you get my stuff, right?
Nuclear waste.
Yeah. By the way, Tulsi, it's not Tulsi. They anglicized it. It is in Sanskrit. Tulsi.
Tulasi.
Tulsi is a herbal
I'll
plant.
check them out.
Every Hindu
Because
house.
I think we have a say that says when elephants fight, the grass suffers. So I'm just a
Worship
grass.
Oh.
Can we change that attitude?
And also,
I would say that
You gotta make one of the elephants talk.
this is
You know about the elephant?
An elephant's fight.
That's what she
Better.
said.
Get the hell out of here.
That's not how everyone
It's okay.
Some of these have
Yeah.
one TV show, they advise them.
Every including
You know how big a